All right, welcome everyone to Tech Talk with Tracy. My name is Tracy Repchuk, and today I'm super excited to be interviewing Adam Dicker, who is the former VP of Godaddy After Auctions. And today for me, I'm like a kid in the candy shop as I finally get to ask the questions and get the definitive answers that have riddled me or provided me with conflicting solutions. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Adam.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, and I'm hoping I can answer some of those questions for you today.
I have no doubt. If somebody can do it, it's definitely going to be you. Okay, so I want to start at the beginning. How did you get into technology and ultimately find your way to GoDaddy?
So originally I was in university. I was about 18, 19 at the time, and a company came to me when I was in my first or second year university and offered me a position working for them for $100K a year. I went home and I told my dad, and he said, well, I don't believe you. You're full of crap. Nobody offered you that. You're full of crap. And I said, no, really, come with me to the interview. So he went with the interview. They put the contract down in front of me. He said, well, you can either take it and hopefully you don't screw up, or you can go through university and you may get a job that you may like, but it may only pay you 40 to 50K. Who knows? So I decided to take the contract, and luckily I never screwed up and I never had to look back. Then eventually from there, I started my own computer company. Then the internet started to get interesting, so I started an ISP service. That got me into the internet and domain names, and then eventually I got more and more into domain names. So I would start to get interested in investing in them and buying them, setting up my own websites. And then from there I started to do I did it for a while. I amassed a large portfolio of domain names, bought and sold lots for 6, 7, 8 figures. And then GoDaddy came up to me at a conference and said, would you be interested in coming to work for us? And it just started out that way, and it was I was hired within 2 days, and it was a real whirlwind experience. And they knew I already had experience in the domain area. They knew I already owned a bunch of domain names, that I was buying and selling them day to day, as well as building businesses. And from there, it was just a good match, and that's how it all happened.
Wow, that's kind of interesting. So you went from being an entrepreneur to going to corporate to kind of being back to an entrepreneur now. Was that a hard transition to get into corporate, and how did that feel?
No, it really wasn't hard at all. I mean, as long as you don't have any attitude and no ego, and don't think that you're better than everybody else. I mean, I don't care what job I'm doing. If I had to clean toilets to feed my family, I would do that. So obviously going to GoDaddy, I didn't have to clean toilets. I would have if they asked me to, because that's who I am. But no, listen, you learn to respect the people you work with. You realize it's a team. Titles are just titles. It doesn't matter what anybody is, and you're all there to just have the same thing, and that's build the company. So I didn't have any problem with that. But then again, it's also easier to do something like that and put up with some of the corporate world when you know you already have something going strong and you have something to fall back on.
Oh, definitely. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I've kind of been terrified because I've never had a job. I graduated with an IT degree, actually up Sheridan College up in Oakville, and started a software company at the age of 19. And so I've like, what would I do if anyone ever approached me with that? And quite frankly, I don't know, but it's so awesome to have an opportunity like you did to learn kind of under an infrastructure that they must have had. So I just find that fascinating.
It was definitely, and I say this a few times, it was one of the strongest executive teams that I got a chance to work with. And I have worked for other companies before in the meantime while I was building my companies and things like that. But it was a really strong executive team, and it was a real joy to work for them. And they were very, very good to me, and it was a pleasure.
It's so awesome to hear. A lot of times you'll hear about like corporate America or things of that nature. And kind of crushing the man type of thing, and I love when I hear that people really actually enjoyed their job, and it just either became something you outgrew or whatever.
Well, part of the benefit was that I was brought in at a VP level, so they were going to listen to me. They knew that I had the knowledge, so I was able to get some things done quicker than other people would have. But then I also experienced the typical corporate roadblocks that you get, where you have to sometimes jump through hoops and paperwork. So you have to deal with both, and I kind of knew that going in. So it wasn't bad. It was probably better than I expected for the most part.
Okay, well, that gives me a little hope if it ever had to happen then. All right, so we know .com is the master, and .net and those types of things, and .org. But all over the place. I'm seeing, .tech, .la, me, 1,000 things are popping up as far as domain extensions. How do we know if any of these have any value whatsoever? And if we should be, watching some sort of trend?
So one of the things that you need to know is, and I teach this a lot in courses and in the courses I teach online, as well as when I talk at conferences. The only real reason to buy a domain name, there's two. One is if you're going to use it for a business that you want, which means that's fine. You can pick anything you want and you can build it as brandable that way. Or you can buy something. If you're trying to sell it, you can buy something that will have some intrinsic value to somebody else. In other words, if you're just looking to resell domain names, buy and sell them, don't buy a domain name that you can't see building a business on. So don't just buy something because you like it, but buy it because you can see a business wanting that domain name to build their brand, build their identity, and build their business on. So, I mean, it's important to be able to do that.
Okay, so if you see something like .tech or these weird other things that come out, if you don't see that you would build something on it, even if it's like whatever, sociable.tech or dentists.tech or something, if you don't see yourself building a business on it, then really do you think you're amassing something or amassing an asset perhaps that will just kind of sit there for you?
Yeah, and the other thing is you want to make sure that less is more in this case. You want a less number of high quality assets than having 20, 30, 50, 60,000 names that are all just sitting there that you're paying renewal fees on. But there's .dentist, there's .attorney. I mean, if your name is Lewis and you want to be known as Lewis.attorney, or you want to be civil.attorney, or you want to be criminal.attorney, or you want to be Philadelphia criminal.attorney, I mean, at least those make sense. That's a brand, that's something you can build your business on. If you want to be like Dallas Landscaping or I don't know, whatever, you can do something as long as you can see why a business would build on it. But don't just pick something because you think it sounds really cool. Those are the harder names to sell or to build a business on and a brand.
Awesome advice, especially, okay, so take my scenario then. I'm sitting here with 700 domains. Obviously, I've been on the internet actually since like 1992. And how do I start to evaluate them? How do I get rid of stuff, evaluate whether it has any, any possible value? Most I definitely will not build a business around. How do I decide now what to let go of? Is there like a place to plug in valuations or something like that?
There is, but you can go to a place called Estibot, ESTIBOT.com. You can plug in your domain names. They'll give you a valuation. But to be honest with you, really a valuation on a domain name is much like a valuation on a piece of jewelry. It doesn't really mean anything. The buyer is going to set the price. He's going to tell you what he's willing to pay for that asset. So you can set your prices at whatever you want. And you can negotiate. And yes, if you're not in a cash flow situation where you need money or less, you don't have to take less money. But I've had people call me for domain name, tell me I owned their trademark and that they were going to sue me, and then they hang up on me, and then after a few weeks when they call back and pretend I don't know who they were because they try to tell me there's somebody else, it ends up selling for $65,000 or $85,000. So you don't want to sell too soon and you don't want to sell too late. 98% of this business is understanding how to sell and how to negotiate. 2% is just buying domain names, because anybody can go out and buy a whole bunch of domain names, but you have to buy the right domain names. If you don't buy the right domain names, you're not going to sell them. So going back to your original question, you have these 700 domain names. What are you going to do with them? So the first thing you want to do is find a parking company to park them at. It could be Sedo, SEDO.com. It could be domainnamesales.com. It could be Godaddy. It could be anybody. And that will give you an idea of two things. One, it'll give you an idea of how much traffic the domains actually have. It may give you a little bit of revenue, but that's not so important right now. You want to know what people are going to at that site. Like I owned 96123.net for a long time. Had a lot of traffic and made some good money on it, but I didn't know what people were looking for until I tracked it. Later, I found out they were looking to buy phone cards because there was a Chinese phone card site at 96123.cn, and they were getting confused. So once I targeted phone cards, I was getting the right amount of clicks and I was making a lot more revenue. So just because you think somebody's looking for something at a particular site doesn't mean they are. I mean, you can go to chairs.com and you don't know whether they're looking for lawn chairs, pool chairs. You don't know if they're looking for executive chairs. You don't know what they're looking for. But if you got something like black executive chairs and somebody's going there, you know exactly what they're looking for and you can target them better.
Okay, very cool. So if I put all these things up on a park site, for example,
Yes.
I have the ability, when you say track it, are we putting in Google Analytics and then once you realize that it was a phone card thing, are you now SEOing the site? Is that what is that what you've done?
So no, once you assign them to a park company, which just means you're setting up for a parking account, you add them in, then the parking company will go ahead and decide what to put there automatically. You don't need to do any work, you just need to add them in and get them approved. Then once that's done, you can see what they can analyze them. They analyze them for you and tell you what people are searching for on your page so that you can see what they're looking for, and then you can retarget your domains based on what people are actually looking for and not what you think they're looking for. So for worm.com, I thought there'd be a lot of people looking for virus information, worms, Trojans, things like that, but they're actually looking for worms to go farming with. So you really have to know what they're targeting, otherwise you can't deliver the right results to them.
Well, that's awesome. That means that they kind of are doing a lot of the work for you.
They do a lot of the work for you, and it'll also allow you to know that if you've got a domain name, it's not getting any traffic, it's not making any revenue, and you're not planning on building a business on it right away, there's no reason why you need to keep that domain name or need to renew it. So it should match one of those criteria. I mean, and when you are buying your domain names, you want to make sure that they're easy to type, easy to remember. You want to keep them as short as possible. And you want to use keywords as much as possible, like that black executive chair, because then you know what people are looking for. And you want to make sure that you're picking the extension that matches what you're doing because you want to build your brand. So it's really important to get all those things in place and make sure that you're buying the domain name for the right reason and for the right business if you're trying to grow it for yourself.
Very cool. Now, you mentioned something which actually I got affected by one year, and that was trademarking. So we had the trademark all over the place around the world for a software product that we had developed, and somebody else had the .com.
Okay.
And so we seem to have absolutely no rights. How does that work?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I can give you some stuff that I do know. And one of the things that I know is that on the other side, if you're caught using a trademark or somebody uses a trademark of another company, the fine is $100,000 per domain name, plus any revenue they've perceived that you've made off the domain name, plus any revenue they've perceived they've lost by you having the domain name. So that's the other side of the coin. But as far as I know with the legal side, a lot of it can go by first use. So if you've got the domain name and then somebody registered a trademark later and they weren't running it, you're fine. You can win that. And in your case, you had the trademark. Were they running the website before you, after you, or is it the name of their product or service? If they were using it before you, they can argue first use, but it's a much harder case when you have the trademark. But reverse hijacking would be if somebody had a great website like chairs.com and then I registered a trademark on chairs.com and tried to get the domain name back. So we can't, that's obviously not allowed. And there's lots of people that have tried to do that over the years.
Okay, very cool. So if you have the trademark, yeah, I like that. So, you know, I'm not sure how we, because I'm going back, I'm going back so many years with that one, but it's one that has always sat in my mind is, was there something better we could have done there? Because quite frankly, he just used it for all this time and we had to buy the .net. Yeah, so interesting.
It really depends how he was using it, whether he was using it, and also if your trademark is in the same industry. So I got sued by elephant.com because I loved animals. I loved elephants. I own giraffes.com. I own a bunch of them. And the largest insurance company in the UK was elephant.co.uk. So they wanted the .com. They made me an offer. I rejected it. And then they sued me for it and they lost. And then they had to pay a lot more for the domain name after that to buy it off me. And eventually I did sell it to them. But you can imagine you're a little soured after somebody sues you for it and then they want to buy it. So the price goes up a little bit.
And so it should.
It should, yes.
So that's interesting too. So you had because you were using it in a completely different sense, was that the protection you had? Yeah.
I wasn't trying to profit and target insurance customers or make money off of their trademark. That would be using it in bad faith. And if I was using it in bad faith, for sure I would have lost and they would have been awarded the domain name and I would have got nothing. So I've only had that happen twice in 20 years where I've been sued for a domain name, and both times I won. So, and both times they were animals. The other one was pig.com, and they ran a company that was selling cleaning chemicals. So my animals have been very good to me, and I continue to watch Discovery Channel to this day.
That's really funny. That's cute. Okay, so let's say a guy says, I want to be a flipper. I see so many people getting kind of products pitched at them, like, at internet marketing events. Hey, just become a domain flipper, make millions. So, what are some of the things then a person can do to increase the value easily for a domain they have? Or, if they're not going to be building a business, are we back to that original question of, why are you doing this?
No, not really. I mean, you can start with, so let's start from the beginning. I had people come to me, a couple came to me, they spent over $800,000 on domain names, and then they came to me for advice, and I had to tell them that the whole portfolio wasn't worth $5,000. That's a hard conversation to have with somebody, but you don't seek the advice afterwards. You try to get the information beforehand, or you watch videos, or you read, or anything you do. But in this case, you can start with like $100 investment, buy 10 domains at an average $10, and then learn how to sell them. Sell one even at $2,500, and you're making a huge profit. And you've still got 9 left to try to sell over the next year. Put half that money away and invest half or a third of it back in and keep going. And that's the best way to start without losing your shirt and without putting in too much investment. You don't have to start. And if you know how to buy 10 good domain names and you learn about outbound sales and negotiations, you'll be able to sell those domain names without a problem.
Okay, so you mentioned when you know how to buy 10 good domain names. Is there a secret to that? What is that?
Well, I mean, the real secret is what I said before, is that when you're buying domain names, only buy the names that you think somebody could build a business on or want to build a business on. There's lots of examples like that. I mean, I see them every day, but it could be the Chicago divorce attorney, Chicago landscaper, anything that you can do to make money. Now, I've done it before where I did DallasFences.com, and what I did was I hooked up with somebody in Dallas who builds fences. We worked out a deal where I was getting 10 to 15% for every client that I referred to them. He was getting more clients than he could handle. He was charging $10,000, $12,000 a fence. I was making $1,200 per lead, and he couldn't keep up with me. He had to put the leads out to a competitor. So that's a case where you do lead generation. You still own the asset, and you create relations with different individuals so that you can make money off your assets while they're sitting there, and you're making great money with some of them.
Okay, I'm liking that. Is there a title for what you just did there?
It's called lead generation. Lead generation.
Lead generation.
Yeah.
Nice and simple.
Very simple.
Okay. Now, let's say we do want to sell domains. And again, you were GoDaddy after auctions, and I'm sure there's many others out there. What does somebody look for when they want to sell ultimately?
Okay, so there's a couple things you can do. Let's say you had, pick a random one, Chicago divorce attorney. So you type that into Google, and you see how many people are currently paying for that ad down the sidebar, and you're going to find at least 10 companies that are currently buying that ad now, and they could be paying as much as $6, $7, $8 a click. Now you've got the chance to build a site for them, get that business, get it indexed, and get them on the front page of Google so they don't have to continue paying a couple $1,000s a month when they can just buy your domain name that's indexed. They'll bring them clients right away. There's another tool called SPYFU, SPYFU, and .com, and if you put in any term, it'll tell you everybody that's advertising for it, and it'll show you even pictures of their ads, so you can see exactly what they're advertising. You reach out to those people, even tell you how much they're spending per month with Google AdWords. So you already know ahead of time you're spending $3,500 a month or $8,000 a month, and you can get clients from this domain name that are targeted exactly for what you're already paying for, and you only pay for it once instead of every month. That's powerful information to go in when you know what somebody's already spending per month to get to the position they're advertising in on Google.
That was great. I love that. So something to execute and take a look at for later for sure.
Yeah, and they don't have to rebrand their website. They can just use that as a separate site to generate leads for their existing business.
Nice. I absolutely love it. Okay, so what are some of the favorite things now? You're back on your own. You're consulting. You've had the best of both worlds, quite frankly. Yeah. What are some favorite things about where you are in your life right now?
Well, I mean, I think I've only done about 5%, believe it or not, of what I plan on doing. So I'm looking forward to the other 95%. I guess the best part is that I work a lot of hours, but I get to pick the hours that I work, and I concentrate on the important stuff. So when I start my day, the first thing I do is I do the revenue affecting things first. So It'll be something to do with a customer, with an invoice I have to send out, with a quote that I have to give, or just plain customer service. But I also set daily goals for myself. I've done this since I started, and it used to be like $100 a day I wanted to make, and so on. And I keep a little bell on my desk, and I ring that bell every time I hit my goals. The goals have gotten bigger, the challenges have gotten harder, but every day is still a different day. So it doesn't matter what I did yesterday. Today's a different day, and I always play it as if I have 4 kids, so I play it as if I have to make enough money for food for that day for the family. And every day I work hard. And when you're working on your own as an entrepreneur, you know as well as I do, it's very hard to stay focused. It's very hard to set a regular schedule, and you have to be very disciplined. 8:30 every morning, I go for my coffee. I'm back in my office by 9. I stay in my office. I get my work done. I do a bunch of things. I may have interviews. I may have other things to do, but you have to stick to a schedule and always focus on the customer-facing stuff first. If I have to do stuff for me, it doesn't matter if it slips down a day or two, but the customer stuff has to be addressed right away.
I love that. And here's especially why I keep telling my clients that, you know, being an entrepreneur, especially a solopreneur, you're somebody that has to answer to yourself. And it's so easy to get distracted. Oh, the dishes aren't done, especially when you're working from home. My husband and I have actually worked from home since 1990, I guess 1992. And we raised our kids from home. And so we had to get very focused, and we had to set schedules, and we had to make sure that the distractions were at a minimum, despite the fact that we were home. And I think one of the best lessons I learned over time, and I've definitely been elaborating with my clients as well, is you have to put the cash generation at the beginning of your day. You know, simply because we can all get, you know, sucked into the busy stuff all day long. There's emails, there's social media, there's all of these other elements that feel like you're working or networking or something. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, you've made no money. And that's a fast way for your business to not survive and become one of those staggering statistics. For sure.
And it's very easy to get caught up in and sidetracked by that stuff. The kids need to go to the doctor. There's something that goes on. You need to go grocery shopping. You have to focus. And when I come in my office, I stay in my office, and everyone knows Dad's at work, and that's it. Don't bother them. That doesn't mean they don't. It just means you have to know how to handle it. You have to know how to deal with it, and you have to plan your day accordingly. Some days, the good thing about it, the other good thing that's positive is that I get to come out of here and I have dinner with the family every night, and then I may have to go back because I deal with people in all kinds of different time zones. And like tonight, I've got a call at 7 o'clock. You just arrange your schedule as you need to do it, because you're the one you're answering to. And at the end of the day, you're going to be much harder on yourself, hopefully, if you're running your business correctly, than any boss would be.
I completely agree. It's such a great premise, and it's so needed in entrepreneurs, and especially when somebody has a skill, like, you know, whether they're a dentist or whether they're a Reiki practitioner or a massage therapist or whatever it is. The thing that I'm finding is they're great at their skill, but they're not great at, you know, operating a business, understanding the logistics, and then, of course, internet marketing, all of that on top of it just becomes a complete overwhelm. I think when you master, though, that the discipline, the responsibility, and the understanding that you need to pull cash in the door, you've got the fundamentals for success.
Yeah, and with all the stuff that you mentioned, the true entrepreneur knows there's not enough time in the day to get all that stuff done. I mean, sometimes, whether it be getting some social media posts out, getting interaction with some of your customers, whatever it is, there's always stuff to do. But the one interesting thing about this business is, and this is why I've loved it for so long, is that you can teach yourself something new every day. And that's one of the most exciting things about this business, is that in any business online, you can teach yourself something new. And if you have drive, I always say if people have drive, I can teach them anything about the internet or about building a business or creating an online business. The only thing I can't teach people is common sense. But if you have everything else, you're in great shape.
Awesome. Now, you have something called DN Forum. What is that?
So DN Forum is the largest online community where people go and they buy and sell and talk about buying and selling domain names. There's over 2,000 people on every minute of every day, from Australia, from all over the world, all kinds of different countries. And it's neat because you get to interact with them, and you can learn before you go out and you spend money on domain names, which I strongly suggest. You can talk to other people that are already there and ask questions, and it's a real community of people. And there's over 500,000 people on there that are doing the same things that other people are looking to do, and that's learning how to make money from buying and selling domain names.
Okay, so that's the community. Can you buy and sell up there, or this is kind of the training ground?
No, you can sell as well. You can sell to other people. They're called domainers, but other domainers you can sell to. But ideally, you're going to make the most money selling to end users rather than reselling. It's a reseller market. So ideally, you want to sell to end users. Those are the ones who will pay the top dollars for the domain names.
Very cool. So we're going to be wrapping up shortly. Any last words of advice or anything that you'd like to leave our viewers with?
One of the best things I can tell you, no matter what industry you decide to get into, is do a lot of reading before you think about spending money. Get involved, understand, talk to some people who may already be in the industry, get their take on it. There's still lots of money to be made in this industry, so anybody who tells you there isn't, either they're doing it wrong or they're trying to keep you out of the business, because there's a lot of money that can be made, and you just have to focus and learn. Once you learn, I wouldn't go out and try to fix a car, because I'm not a car guy, without learning and educating myself. So don't jump into a business because you heard a story about some guy who sold a domain name for $1 million, blah, blah, blah. That's not going to be you, but it doesn't have to be you. If you buy a domain for $10 and you sell it for $1,000, you're making more profit than you could ever make at a bank anytime in a year. So start small and keep building on those small sales, and you can get your sales up to 5 to 10K a month. And most people with an extra 5 to 10,000 a month would be pretty happy about now.
Awesome advice. Celebrate the small victories. Very, very good. Well, Adam, it has been an absolute joy and a pleasure to have you. I look forward to many future encounters. And to our viewers out there, you know, when you can, take a look at dmforum.com or get in touch directly with Adam. So, Adam, what is the best or preferred method you like for them to get in touch?
I'm one of those guys. I like to give out my contact information. I know a lot don't, so I'll give you lots of ways to contact me. My Skype is adam.dicker. My email is adam@dcg, like David, domainconsultinggroup.com, so adam@dcg.com. And you can even call me on my cell phone, 416-884-0535. Many people are surprised I give it out, but they're even more surprised when I answer it. So don't be surprised when I answer it, because you're actually calling to speak to me, so don't be surprised.
I love that. It's so important. I think one of the things with the internet is people forget the fact that we're human to human, and we really need to, the deals happen that so many times that way. And
there's nothing better than being able to pay it forward and help somebody else in their life. So that's why I do it. That's why I give out all my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me, and I really mean that.
Thank you so much for being kind to our viewers, and we really appreciate that. So again, thank you for joining me today at Tech Talk with Tracy, where we add fun and understanding to technology. So until next time, enjoy your time online.